Good afternoon, friends. Today is the second day. Today is the second day of our international workshop on research methodology in social sciences. So good afternoon, my dear colleagues, my dear friends, students, teachers, and all, one and all. Today we have two eminent speakers who are among us. The first speaker who is going to deliver her first speech is Dr. Khaleda Goni Datto, Department of Special Education, Stockholm University, and she is also ex-Erasmus scholar. Before going to deliver her speech, I would like to invite our principal ma'am, Dr. Uma Ghosh, to say about something. Ma'am? Principal ma'am?
I think ma'am is on mute.
Okay, good afternoon. I am audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome all the participants in this second day international workshop. We are extremely honored to have Dr. Khaleda Ganidat, Assistant Professor, Department of Social Education, Stockholm University.
Special Education, ma'am. Department of Special Education.
Department of Special Education, Stockholm University, among us today. She is going to enlighten us on the topic comparative research studies. The entire credit of having Dr. Khaleda Ganidat as a research person today goes to Dr. Prathita Biswas Madam. Due to her efforts and international links, we have been blessed with this opportunity to get such a respectful research person to edify our students with her profound knowledge on the topic. I also thankful to Mrs. Sumita Choudhury Madam, TIC, PAILAN College of Education, for organizing jointly this workshop with SIDDHINATH MAHAVIDYALAYA. I also welcome our second resource person, today's second resource person, Dr. Noni. I am right, Doctor? Yes? Nobin. Yes.
Nobin.
Nobin for his lecture also. Thank you all of you. Let us start the session. Over to Samsri.
Thank you, ma'am, for your greetings and brief introduction to the speakers. So before wasting time, because we have two speakers today, only we have 2 hours time, 1 hour each speaker. So before wasting any time, I want to invite our first eminent speaker, Dr. Khaleda Goni Datto, to deliver her valuable speech. Ma'am, over to you.
Thank you. Very good afternoon to everyone. Thank you so much, Shamashri. Thank you, ma'am. And huge congratulations, Prathita, for putting this together and making sure that I become a part of the discussions as well. And hopefully I'll be able to share something which might be useful for every student and everyone. My name is Khaleda, as you just mentioned. I work at the Department of Special Education, and I am a comparative researcher. That is, I look at world systems, I look at political systems, I look at planning, and I look at policies, as well as I look at gender. My main focus in this thesis was gender studies within a comparative perspective. So without any further ado, I can just begin my presentation, and I hope I'm audible to everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. And Prathita, if you're there, if I ramble too much, please stop me, okay? Or if I talk too fast, please stop me, all right?
No, it's perfectly all right, perfectly all right.
Okay, Thanks. What I will do is, a recommendation is I would I'll try and wrap up my presentation within 40 minutes. So we have 5 minutes or 10 minutes discussion time before the next speaker. So we don't kind of get stressed out, because I assume that the next speaker begins in less than an hour's time, right? So I'll try to do it that way so we have ample time for discussions as well as not get stressed out. All right, I shall begin. Yep. Okay, so the focus of my thesis was the role of adult literacy in transforming the lives of women in rural India, overcoming gender inequalities. This comparative case study was took place in Bhilwara district, Rajasthan, and Howrah district in West Bengal, India. And for me, I think it was especially important since I was born and raised in India. So it was easy for me to carry out the studies in an Indian context, because we all grow up learning 3 languages simultaneously, if I'm not mistaken. So it was interesting at the same time. And this kind of perspective or an insight, the Western world really lacks. So, when you look at Sweden, we feel that it's a very small country. It is extremely advanced. There is a lot of gender equality. However, you will be surprised to know that there are a lot of similarities when it comes to gender studies in the socioeconomic background within India and Sweden. So when we look at the first world, we should not always think that there are only differences. There are plenty of similarities as well. And that needs to be kept in mind, because we only focus on the differences, which can be a problem at times. Okay. So the structure of the seminar is I shall very quickly go through the introduction, the national framework, and the schemes and policies related to women, because since this webinar is on research methodology and comparative research methods, my intention or my aim is to focus more on the part 2 in the discussions of what is the theoretical and conceptual framework, what is the methodology, and when we talk about comparative studies, what do we mean by comparative studies? What do we compare? What is the validity and the reliability of comparative studies? I think that is very, very important to understand before we embark on a research plan or a research project. What are the methods that is best suited for this purpose? All right. Now, as we know that, which everybody is familiar with, that Asia and Africa are regions home to 90% of the world's rural population. And the largest is found in India with 857 million, followed by China. However, an increase in urban population does not imply a reduction in rural poverty. Now, what do I mean by this? It has been estimated that by 2050, there will be rapid urbanization of rural areas, okay? But that does not mean that the poverty is going to be completely eliminated. It means that the face of poverty is going to undergo a transformation, because then poverty will shift from the then rural areas into the urban areas. Because poor people will still remain. There will still be a kind of a wide gap between the rich and the poor. So it's just urbanization will not kind of let you think or allow us to think that it's going to tackle poverty issues also. That's not going to happen. It's just that people will migrate more into the cities and the poverty will increase, because of course, when we talk about eliminating poverty, we have to look at the socio-economic or income. Also, if there are any generation schemes that will imply, that will have substances to increase the level of the population, in the sense the backward, especially people, those living below the poverty level, if are we able to reach the outreach, okay? Okay, Since this study was carried out 7 years back, within 2013, 2014, I had collected my data. At that point of time, the most important international mandates that we all know and we have all been kind of dealing with are the MDG goals, education for all, and education for sustainable development. From post-2015, we are looking at Sustainable Development Goals 2030. All right. So when we look at all the international goals and all the policies and implementation strategies that has come into place, we see that there is a huge focus on eradicate extreme poverty and hunger, achieve universal primary education, promote gender equality, and reduce child mortality, improve maternal health. These are some of the policies that have played a major part in formulating planning for countries. However, the problems still continue. Why do problems continue? Because we don't see or we don't envisage the totality or of the problem or the issues or the challenges that we want to absolve people of or we want to overcome. And this I will continue with it slightly later. Okay, in India, the national framework, very quickly, the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, midday meal schemes, right to education, scheme for infrastructure development in minority institutes, and scheme to provide quality education in madrasas. And the most important thrust was given to education because the education was idealized or envisaged as an agent of basic change in the status of women. So please keep this in mind as we go along the presentation. Snapshot of India, population 1.2, now it's even more. Literacy, this is taken from Census 2011. Indian Constitution recognizes 22 languages, scheduled tribes 8.6 and scheduled castes 16.6%. And schemes, the specific schemes and policies related to women is development of women and children in rural areas. You have the 73rd and the 74th amendments, and then you have the national policy for the empowerment of women specifically in rural areas. Now, this is the part that I would like to focus upon. When we talk about comparative research and case study strategy, what is it? Okay, and why have I chosen the field work at Bhilwara district, Rajasthan, and Howrah district, Bengal? What were the aims and objectives of the study? My main aim was to examine the role of adult literacy in changing the lives of marginalized women in Bhilwara district, Rajasthan, and Howrah district, West Bengal in India. The specific objectives to examine similarities and differences in the socioeconomic context of the rural women in Bhilwara district, Rajasthan, and Howrah district, West Bengal, to identify and analyze some of the key factors that contribute to and sustain women's access to adult literacy in Bhilwara district, Rajasthan, and Howrah district, West Bengal, to study the linkages between adult literacy, empowerment, and transformation in Bhilwara district, Rajasthan, and Howrah, and to examine the role of stakeholders and the civil society in sustaining women empowerment and transformation in Bhilwara district and Howrah district. Now, even though these two places or these two districts fall within the category of rural, the rurality differs. How does it differ? When I talk about Bhilwara district, right? It is one of the most backward districts in Rajasthan and is far removed from the main cities. So extremely backward, very low socioeconomic background. Now, when on the other hand, if I contrast it with Howrah district, West Bengal, a rural area in Howrah district is completely different to a rural area in Rajasthan. So the context plays an important role in comparative studies. Howrah is far more closer to Kolkata, so they have women and people have access to education. They have access to resources. They have access to NGOs. They have access to people who can come from Kolkata to teach them, which is not possible in Bhilwara district in Rajasthan. So that is how we must understand when we talk about rural, where you have to see where is this place situated, where is this village or district located. That is how you will able to understand the difference when you situate the location. All right. When we choose, let's say a topic or an area of research, we also kind of complement or supplement it with the literature review, because that is how you are able to analyze in the discussions section. How have you used the literature? What does the literature tell you about adult literacy? Is it feasible or is it worth carrying on a study to underline it, to underpin its importance? So the literature review, the first thing what I did was embark on a literature review, which gave me examples from all over the world, from different continents, that informed me, right? How does adult literacy help in transforming the lives of women? What is literacy seen as a collective good? And why is it not only limited to the individual? And for me, these studies carried out across the globe were an important source of information and informed me and kind of stimulated me and motivated me to further go into the depth, undertake the study, because then these studies, these literature review showcased that the dimension of adult literacy became a very social aspect and an economic aspect, because they in turn transformed the lives of not only the women that I interviewed, but also the lives of the family. And when transformation impacts the entire family, it results in empowerment, okay? All right. Now, what I have done is very briefly summarized the key points that the literature review threw up. One was relating literacy programs to income generation activities provided women opportunities to ameliorate their lives, increase community participation, increase women to become agents of change. Literate mothers were able to influence their children's education, participate in decision-making at home, and promoted intergenerational learning needed for creating a sustainable society. Literacy increased levels of self-esteem, encouraged positive and active engagement of people, especially women, to advocate the benefits of education. These are the key success factors which the literature review threw up, and we will see later on in this presentation how this tied up with the study that I undertook in both the districts in India. The theoretical framework and the conceptual construct, the theory of representation, gender and development, intersectionality, transformative learning theory in adult education, the conceptual construct, it was power and the capability approach. Now, I just would like to throw in a question to the audience. Are you familiar with the theory of intersectionality? Can you tell me why this theory is important, especially when you are looking at gender studies? Anyone? I'd like to hear some feedback, some comments, otherwise it makes it more dynamic. Yeah, anyone? No right and wrong. Would anyone like to jump in and answer this question?
In the chat box? Khaleda, sorry to interrupt. Can you write in the chat box? The participants, can they write in the chat box?
I can't see the chat box here. I think I'll have to stop share screen.
Hang
on.
It's okay.
Okay.
So, someone, you may unmute yourself and then you can start speaking. Anyone which ma'am is asking.
Anyone? What is intersectionality? Any idea what is intersectionality? Any idea what is theory of representation? No comments? Okay, then we move on. I'll take it up later. All right. You shall not get away with it. I'm going to come back to this later. Is that okay, Prathita? All right.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Now when we do comparative research, we look at this cube. It is by Bray and Thomas cube. we study, there are three aspects or three areas in the cube which is very important. One is where are you conducting the study? These are the 7 levels, right? The second one is that it's not in any order, so I'm taking it up randomly. The second one is what are you looking at? What aspects of education and of society are we looking at? And the third one is who, right? So what, where, and who. For me, it was individuals. I was looking at districts. It can be more than one. And if you see this, the portion that is highlighted, if you look at the portion that is highlighted, this is where this study had been conducted. So this is an intersection. The person was looking at states, they were looking at curriculum, and they were looking at the entire population, which was not in my case. This is just an example. So where the three denominators intersect, that becomes your study, and that becomes a part of your analysis as well, and the results as well. So when we do comparative studies, we have this cube in the background. Now, what I would also like to very clearly point out is comparative studies does not always mean international, all right? Because when you read about comparative studies, it is always, most of the time, I wouldn't say always, that is very generalizing, it is mostly international comparative studies, but that is not always correct. The beauty of comparative studies is it can be within a country, which can kind of contrast 2 areas, 2 regions, 2 districts, 2 localities, right? And it can be international when you're comparing a system in another country with that of your own. So comparative education is not restricted to international or national. It can be a bit of both. And this is what is very important, because comparativists, are required by UNESCO to work on policy implementations, because in the UN, the mechanisms of the UN policy, they require comparative researchers that can study, that can generate discussion, and kind of implement or suggest further policies for the future. Okay, now I will not give up on not asking questions. I would like to ask you, if you had to explain ontology, epistemology, how would you do that? I'll go back. How would you do that? Are you familiar with ontology and epistemology? Anyone? No? Okay. All right. The ontological position adopted in the research study, I look at the social construction, right? When we talk about social constructions in which how is race, ethnicity, religion, nationality, how do they play a significant role in the life of the participants? Subjectivist epistemology. This means that there are multiple realities that can be explored through human interactions and meaningful actions. It looks at processes that facilitate one to overcome oppressive power relations towards transformation. So what I basically mean to say is, how do you understand the multiple realities that are present in the case study or in the research that you are going to undertake or you have thought about? Because one sentence, one reality can be interpreted in various ways. So that becomes subjective to the context, to language, to race, to ethnicity, to the social structure, to the context. So that is very important, extremely important to keep in mind. How can we interpret the multiple realities? And when we are in the process of interpreting, we have to make sure, and we have to mention that we have to be as objective as possible and not subjective. Because in qualitative studies, right, when you do, this is a comparative with a qualitative research method. So in qualitative studies, because the sample size is so small, there is the danger of becoming very close to your subject, isn't it? So So in order to avoid that, you have not only to mention that, but also to indicate in your thesis, how have you adopted an objective position? That means, in other words, if I say, what do you mean by objectivity? It means how, as a researcher, how have I neutralized the position so that I do not allow my biases to enter the thesis, right? Because if our biases as a researcher can manipulate data, then the research is unreliable, right? Then we have to take into consideration the ethical connotation of research. So these are very small things, but they are extremely vital when we are carrying out or undertaking research. Okay, the comparative case studies, what do? They involve the collecting and analyzing data from several cases and are a common strategy for enhancing the external validity or generalizability of the findings. Now, usually, qualitative researchers, they state that when you take out, I'll just rephrase that. In qualitative research has been subjected to a lot of criticism because they say that we cannot generalize our findings unlike quantitative research. But the problem, we must always keep in mind that there is a solution to every problem. As a qualitative researcher, as a comparative researcher, I can say that yes, my research can be generalized provided the context is the same, right? Provided the variables are the same. If I'm looking at a similar context, which now when I talk about context, it means rural. Over here it's rural. It's over here it's talking about the socioeconomic background. It's over here we are talking about literacy. So if I look at the context, if I see if there are similarities in the social setting or the location of the research, then I can say, yes, I can generalize my findings, even though the sample size is very small, and even though this is not a quantitative study. So we can always defend our work, okay? All right, in the methods, I had interview guide, semi-structured interviews, audio recording and transcription, and focus group discussions, then document analysis, international policies, national policies, and programs for gender empowerment, NGO, INGO, thematic analysis. Now my results, the themes were generated out of the results. The theory was generated out of the results. It was an inductive research. It was not deductive. Deductive is more aligned to quantitative research. So mine was qualitative. So the theory came out, was generated from my results. Okay, that's the difference. Okay, the three themes that I could kind of navigate around were gender relations, education or learning, non-formal education, and transformation empowerment. So the interview guide was structured, was built around these three themes. Gender relations. Now, you must please understand that when I talk about gender, right, I mean both men and women, boys and girls, right? Because gender is a broader construct. I'm not talking about feminism, I'm talking about gender. Then I'm looking at education or learning in a non-formal context, in an informal context as well. Because we must understand that our learning begins right from the time that we are born. It is the family that gives us our first learning, and within an informal setting. Transformation, I'm not going to go read line by line. I'm not going to go through each line that you can read. I'm just going to give you a gist. Transformation is does adult literacy really impact transformation? How does it do that? How can we change the lifestyle of a person? How can we bring about empowerment? What is the main factor that induced transformation? And in this particular case, or in these two cases, it was financial autonomy. The economic benefits of adult literacy was the one that changed the dynamism within the household, or in other words, very simply put, the power structure in the household. The transformation happened because of adult literacy. And how did it happen? Because these women could generate income, and this income kind of reposition themselves, so these women could now have a say in their family lives, in their households, in decision making. Okay. India, Rajasthan, and West Bengal. The main points that we need to remember is the literacy rate. Rajasthan is 47.76%, West Bengal is 66.5%. And the area Bhilwara is mostly scheduled tribes, okay? And in Bengal, it's slightly lower. Scheduled caste is not so much in Rajasthan as compared to Bengal. Okay, why did I choose Bhilwara and Howrah district? Just to mention very quickly is before my main field work, I had already done a pilot study which was carried out in Araku Valley, which is in Andhra Pradesh. Now, one of the problems that I realized is I had to rely on an interpreter, right? Now, the interpreter had to kind of translate my questions into the local language. Now, I was not very sure whether he had translated it correctly or whether he had not, because when you do a language translation, sometimes it is very difficult to relay the exact context or content of the question. And then I thought that it is better for me in my field work, in the main work that I will undertake, to have control of my questions. So the reason Rajasthan was chosen is because of my language proficiency, which is in Hindi and in Bengali. And Rajasthani language is very close, the dialect is very, very close to Hindi. So it was not a problem and everybody could speak Hindi. And of course, Bengal was not an issue at all because I am from Bengal. So communicating in Bengali was not a problem. Accessibility. Now in Rajasthan, you have to understand, especially in the rural villages, it's a huge problem. You just cannot walk in there and say, hi, I'm from Stockholm. I want to carry out research. You will be immediately thrown out of the village. I had people who lived in that area and who were known to the locals. That is how I got accessibility in both Rajasthan, in Bhilwara district and in Howrah district. I'll give you a very, very brief example. I was walking down, I had two people with me, my local guides. I was walking down this narrow lane in Bhilwara district, and suddenly I was stopped by the village chief. I had a camera, it was hung around I had just slinged it around myself. And then he asked me, who gave you the permission to take pictures? You're not allowed here. And then the person informed him, okay, I was a guest of so-and-so. Then he said, okay, it's fine. Then it's all right with us. Otherwise, we don't allow anyone to come and take pictures. It's a very conservative area. So accessibility, when you do research, accessibility in terms of resources, in terms of people is extremely important. Resources you will get. Resources, when I talk about resources, I mean monetary resources, to fund your expedition to the certain place, but also resources in terms of people or local stakeholders that live in the village. That's equally important, okay? And then, of course, the socioeconomic disparity, interregional diversity. Okay, the total number of respondents were 52, and then out of that, 27 in Bhilwara and 25 in Howrah district. Bhilwara had mostly scheduled tribe. There were, in Howrah district, the area that I went did not have a scheduled tribe there. And scheduled caste was only 5 in Bhilwara, and there was 20 scheduled caste in the Howrah district. Okay, just to give you a very rough idea about about my respondents, a brief profile of the respondents. All right, now when in the results, transformation in the words, what do they mean by, what do they understand by transformation? When you come from an academic background and you talk about words, like you spring upon them words like transformation and gender relations and education learning, they're not going to understand that. So how do you break it up? That is also a challenge. How do you break it up into words that can be understood by the lay person, right? So this is a very, very important aspect to keep in mind when we go out into the field. Because when you come from the university, we have a certain language or an academic language which is unknown to a lay person. It's the same way. When a doctor comes and talks about medicine, it's going to go over my head. I don't understand the language. So simple language that is easily understood, understandable is very, very important. The research questions, or rather the interview, the semi-structured interview or the interview guide has to be broken down into a simple, easy, comprehensible results. Help others, educate minds, economic independence, and help me to ensure better future for my children. What is transformation defined? Participate in decision-making, education is awareness, financial independence, be the change. Gender relations, this was vital to them. I can make my own decisions about the future of my children. So with economic and financial independence comes the power to make decisions about, to have a say in family politics, okay? And this was the most important part or the most important impact of adult literacy. Now, empowerment for below. Now, when we talk about literacy, when we talk about programs, we talk about policies, we also have to understand that is extremely important, extremely imperative, and extremely intrinsic to have support of the local stakeholders. Okay, now these were the local stakeholders that I had the privilege and the opportunity to meet. We over here let's start from Bhilwara. I had the Shahpura family that has lived there in this district for decades, for centuries, and they were the ones who gave me access into the field. In Howrah district, the Mohila Bikash Kendra by Mrs. Madhuri Ghosh, Bagnan. If you have not been there, and those that are interested in microcredit organizations, please do go there. She has done a phenomenal work. At the presently, she has like 25,000 women that are working in this cooperative society, and they have a microcredit banking as well, which is exclusively run by women. Okay? And most of the women that joined and she kind of initiated into the microcredit, they were rat pickers, they were widows, and they were also women that were thrown out of their houses because the husband had remarried, and they came from extremely backward social class. And now these same women, they have been empowered, and most of them that I met, they at the presently have, you know, they are educating their children, they have built their own houses, and they are carrying out businesses in the villages in and around this area. And if you see her green sari, this is the symbol, this is their uniform. So whenever any one person is seen in a green sari, they immediately associate that person with the Mohila Bikash cooperative, okay? And it is a symbol of not only power, it is a symbol of prestige, right? It's a symbol of respect, because they have done phenomenal work. Now, these women also, just a little anecdote from my fieldwork, they had these illicit, where they would sell liquor. Illicit liquor was sold. So, there were a couple of goons that would gather there every evening, get drunk, and kind of tease women and girls that would pass this corner. So these women, when the police didn't do anything about it, they used to take corruption was high. They used to take bribes from these goons. So what these women did, the organization got together, went into this area and just knocked down, just broke the shop. They kind of tore it down. After that, there was no such incidents of eve teasing reported from this corner of the village. Okay, so this is empowerment. You have to not only fight for yourself, right? That is, of course, the basic instinct. But how do you ensure that empowerment also benefits the rest of society? And that is the greater good. When you know it has transformed, it's not only transformed you, but it is also transforming the lives of those around you. Okay? And then we have Udang, which is a tiny village in Howrah by the founder of this school is Professor Marmar Mukhopadhyay. He has done phenomenal work. He has created, this village has become a model village for the entire country, right? And what he has done is educating, there's something of a project called Educating the Third Child. Who is the third child? The third child is a child that nobody wants, okay, who has no help. So they give scholarships, they give a lot of help to children who are unable to afford tuition, who are unable to go to school. Then we have Mr. Kabra. Now what he has done, he is from Bhilwara district, and I got to know him through the Shahpura family. Now Mr. Kabra is a self-made man. He lived in Bhilwara, went to Mumbai, made his, he created a life from over there, but he came back to Bhilwara because he wanted to give back to the society. So what does he do? He opened a shelter called Mata Shray, and this was only for widows. So by, especially young widows who could get educated in the shelter and could become later on financially independent. I can go on and on about the stakeholders, but I would just like to give you a flavor that when we look at transformation does not happen by itself. Okay, it's more than us helping ourselves. We also need people to help us. We need stakeholders. We need community partnerships with community, partnerships with government, partnership with municipalities in order to realize the goals that has been envisaged, had been rather in MDGs and now in the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, now the comparative elements. You have what we had very quickly pointed out earlier, a couple of them. You have tribal, Howrah is scheduled, child marriage is in Bhilwara district, and early marriage was noticed in Howrah district. Now in the tribal, there is a custom. I met a couple of children, a couple of girls who were married at the age of 4 and 5, all right? And when I met the parents as well, and I asked them that why did you get them married so young? So the answer was, it is because, tribals also have a dowry system, but it is the other way around. The younger, because of, the mortality rate of girls is so high in Bhilwara district, for them to get a girl child married get them into early marriage. So the family receives money from the groom. That is like 20,000 or 30,000 rupees, okay? And this is the custom, right? So when we are very quick to kind of cry out against injustice about why are children getting married so young, we must stop it, right? We can't stop it, we are stopping it. We have policies and legislations against it, but we are still unable to restrict it or rather limit it, especially in these backward areas. The main thing we need to keep in mind is when we look at a problem, we have to understand the roots of the problem. So just by, kind of crying out against this, crying out or showing or demonstrating against injustice, we have to understand why is it happening? What is the reason? Why are parents getting their children married? Right? The socio-economic background, the people, living in these areas are so poor for them. And this income, this source of income is of course lucrative. So how can you stop it if you have such a lucrative income generation? But we must keep in mind is these girls do not go, they are not sent off to the husbands, they're not living with the husbands at this age. They only get married and they have an official send off later once they reach puberty. So this is something that we need to keep in mind. Yes? Someone said something? No? Okay, I thought I heard.
Yeah, please continue.
Okay, I'll come back to this. I'll come back to this later. In Howrah, there was, unlike Bhilwara, in Howrah, there is a predominance of social activism, and there was no mention of dowry as such, unlike compared to Rajasthan. Okay, perceiving the role of adult literacy, what is it? As I had said, my voice is heard, education is necessary to progress in life, financial freedom, help others, educate minds, participate in decision-making, education creates awareness, financial independence, help others, be the change, okay? Now, the comparative analysis, we do a data triangulations to see what is data triangulations. Then you see, like when you have carried out, you begin with your national and government documents, and you begin with the methodology and the methods that you have chosen. And then you also kind of, you have the theory. How do these come into each other? Okay, how do these ensure, like I wouldn't say ensure, I would say how do these back up the results? Do they work? Do you see a similarity? Because this is an important and an imperative part of comparative analysis. Is what you had summarized, what I had summarized in the literature, in the literature review, am I seeing similar issues, similar content in the results of my interviews? Am I seeing similar content, a similar kind of a similarity, rather, I wouldn't say content, but similarity in the results, in the discussions? And is it also voiced in the national and the national documents and the international documents? What is the similarity and what is the difference? Sometimes you'll be surprised that your case study, your results can generate more thought, food for thought, which has not been spelled out in international documents or in the literature review. It is usually the case. And this is the beauty of qualitative research and a comparative researcher, right? Because you can pick it up and you can highlight it and say that I need to work on this to kind of generalize, even further generalize my findings. If I take in more countries and see, is it similar in the other countries as well? And how is it different from other countries? Okay. Okay. Why triangulate? The value of triangulation is that it discloses issues found not only in India, but in similar contextual settings found across the world. It gives us a holistic understanding and explanations of a specific problem that can be tackled or overcome through education. And the discussions, just a very quick summary: the need to synchronize grassroots organization with the well-laid plans of the government. You are familiar with the word global and glocal, right? Global is more top-down and glocal is more local up when you look into the local context and see whether it has a global outreach or not. Literacy programs, interventions must be contextualized to meet and address the challenges. Policies need to be gender sensitized by creating opportunities that release women from household duties, and men must be brought into the picture. And this, I feel, is extremely important, extremely vital. We cannot talk about women empowerment if we don't have the men in the picture as well, because women empowerment will not happen by itself, right? Both men and women need to work together for empowerment or transformation to take place. So you can't leave out one section of the society and only focus on one. It's not going to work, right? You have to have sustainable human resources. You have to have sustainable activities. And that is where we have the sustainable development goals. If you have not, I would also recommend that you read the latest Global Education Monitoring Report, which came out on 23rd June, right? It is easily downloadable from the UNESCO website. Have a look, right? Because this is what the entire world is talking about. And now they're talking about inclusion for all. All means all, but is it happening? What are the challenges? What are the issues? Why haven't been, I'm not saying that there is no progress being made. I think the Indian government is doing a great job when it comes to women's schemes and programs, but there is something which is lacking. There is something that we still haven't been able to identify, and poverty is one of the biggest factors, right? We cannot talk about digitalizing the entire country when there are certain areas in India that don't have electricity, that don't have water, they don't have the basic infrastructural support. So these are, and this is not a problem of where India is concerned, it's all over, especially in Africa, right? In most parts of Asia as well, and in developing countries to matter. In Sweden, the inequalities are different, but there is gender inequality in Sweden as well, right? So what I'm saying is, when you do research, when you carry out research, please look at the problem when you talk about solutions, okay? You need to look at the roots as well. Okay, what I've done is I've quickly kind of written up the references. You may find most of them, and if you need a detailed reference list, it's in my thesis, which you can look in if you have the time or if you want to. And yeah, and if you need, you can ask Prathita, and and Shamashri is there and Ma'am is there. So if you need any information, please do not hesitate to get in touch with me. Yep. And thank you for your patience. Any questions or comments? I think we are on time, Prathita, isn't it?
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for your patience. Yeah, now we can take, if there are any questions, I would be happy to
Yes,
take them up.
There is question in the chat box.
Okay. Can you read them out, please? I can't.
Yes. Yes. How much the age-old prejudices and mindset affects the women education in these two districts?
Okay. In Bhilwara is, as I said, it's a very backward district, and people are not inclined to education, especially in the rural areas in this context. So they don't go to school. They're not allowed to go to school because they have household duties. Okay, and so this affects education. This affects empowerment. So it is this Shahpura family that is working there, that works for women empowerment. And you have Mr. Kabra in this particular area who also kind of, there is a trust now with all the policies that have come into vogue. And also because of, let's say, technology is also playing a very important role, because now people are understanding the benefits of education. So it is improving, but it has a long way to go. Whereas on the other hand, if I talk about Howrah, I mean, Bengal is very empowered compared to Rajasthan, which is very visible in the literacy. When you look at the census 2011, you can see the difference, right? So in Bengal, there was not a problem as grave as that in Bhilwara district. Yeah, I hope I've answered your question. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question. Are causal, comparative, and comparative research methodology are same?
Yes. What do you mean by causal comparative? I've not heard of this word. I've heard of comparative research methodology.
If you Riya Banerjee, please come and please explain to ma'am. Riya Banerjee, please come. Anyone can explain? Anyone of the participants, please unmute yourself and please explain to ma'am.
If you can explain, I mean, don't feel inhibited. I think I learned something. I always learn when I give a lecture. So if you can please highlight what do you mean, if you can just explain for my comprehension, what is causal research? I've not heard of this term, so it'd be good for me to know as well. Yeah?
No, there is no reply from the participants.
Okay. Shall we
okay, anyway, we can proceed. Next question is relation between ethnography and again, Meenmoy also said same question, ethnography and causal comparative study. Meenmoy, you are in,
yes, I mean, okay, sorry. Yes, sorry, I interrupted you. Yeah, I got very excited when I saw the.
No, I mean, Mrinmoy is visible. Please, Mrinmoy, please come forward and you explain what is causal comparative study you mean. Then it's easier for ma'am to explain the relation between ethnography and causal comparative study.
Okay, I can take it this way.
They are scared
Would you like to say something?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Very
Yes, Mrinmoy has come. Please.
Ma'am, ethnography study and relation between causal comparative study are very nearest and relation. So how to related to ethnographic research and the causal comparative, kindly to explain.
Okay, but I would request you to just tell me a few more, couple of words more on what is your understanding of causal comparative study? I understand your question completely. I just want you to know what is the difference between comparative study and causal comparative study.
Ma'am, causal comparative study can be termed as well as the ex post facto research methodology.
Okay, for me, this is, okay, if I interpret in the way that I have studied it, it is comparative study is comparative study, right? We don't associate it, at least I do not associate, I have not associated or read about it as causal comparative study, which I don't know about it, to be very honest. But if I had to come to the second part of your question regarding ethnography and comparative research, yes, there is a lot of similarities. Okay, so what in this qualitative studies or qualitative research has a lot of ethnographic research integrated or into it, taken into it. We say that we have adopted ethnographic research methodology or ethnography research methods, right? Because when you look into the multiple realities of respondents, it is a part of ethnography research, isn't it? So we can say that. But it is not ethnographic research, because ethnographic research is far more detailed, right? It is like you're following the person consistently for over a long period of time, and you have a lot of other factors that come into it. But so what we do in qualitative research and comparative research is that we adopt or adapt some of the ethnographic methods so that we understand the lived in realities of the people that we are interviewing. That is the thing. Have I answered your question?
Thank you, ma'am.
Have I answered your question? Does it make sense?
And one more question. Transcription is related to coding, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Transcription,
Okay,
yes. When you transcribe, it is related to coding. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
And the next question is researcher triangulation effective for increasing validity and reliability of comparative research?
It is necessary, mandatory, obligatory for me to increase not only the validity and reliability of comparative research, but also for qualitative research. Okay, so yes, it is. It is very important. Otherwise, your research, my research will not have any value. I will not be able to validate my findings. Yeah, it is absolutely necessary. Yes.
One Tanushree Dhara has asked to highlight on thematic analysis.
Okay, thematic analysis. Like thematic analysis, you can, like when you have, for me, when I did carried out after I had interviewed and then I transcribed, then I could make out what were the certain themes that the respondents came up with. So the themes were generated from my results. Okay, so certain areas, like for me, they only spoke about empowerment and also another thing, not only from the results, if you think about, you're going to do, you're going to focus on literacy and you're going to focus on empowerment, read up on the literature. What does literature say about empowerment? What does literature talk about transformation? How is transformation defined? How is empowerment defined? And how literacy can impact empowerment? So when you read the literature, you have certain very common themes that keep popping up: economic empowerment, gender relations. And when these themes pop up, I kind of summarized them, and then I kind of formed or structured my interview guide based on the main points that came out of the literature review. And then I compared it to my results, and I wanted to see whether or not it tallied. And when it tallies, then you can further work on the themes, right? Because even if that is the beauty of research, because even if you have fixated themes in your mind, it may change because you don't know what the result is going to be about. So when you look at the results, you can always go back to your aims and objectives. You can always go back to the themes that you had earlier started out with and see whether it still holds, whether it still sticks. And then you can work on that. So theme is generated of the results. What are the main things that the respondents talk about? Are you talking about, for me, it was transformation. For me, it was empowerment. That was one thing. Then it was gender relation, right? Because I'm looking at gender, and gender relations is very important because how does it impact? What is the role of women in a house? We have to look at households before we look in society. So you could read up, I think there is a very good book by Patton on qualitative research findings. It is there in my reference. Please read up on that if you want to. I think it's explained far more comprehensively about about themes.
Yes, no more questions right now because it's already 5. So thank you, ma'am, for your nice presentation about rural India gender inequalities, and she has given a very well-described language on a comprehensive ideas about the comparative case studies in Bhilwara district, Rajasthan, and Howrah district, West Bengal, India. For ma'am, I want to share you something that I am thankful to you, ma'am, because you have given Pratita madam to us. She was in another profession. She was in media. But when you meet in Jadavpur University, you motivated her to stick into teaching. So we are very thankful to you that you have gifted such good madam, such valuable madam to us. And I am also the first batch students, B.Ed students of Pratita madam. So I am very proud students of her. So nice presentation, as well as you are very nice person. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thanks a lot for being with us. And I also expect you to have you in some other workshops or some other webinars organized by your college in near future, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Shamashri. It was a pleasure to be here. And I think Pratita and me, we helped each other to be where we are right now, and we go a long way back, and I'm very happy that Pratita kind of forced me into this, and she always makes me work, always. So I'm not complaining, but thank you for having me, and thank you for your time, and thank you so much. And of course, let's keep in touch, let's stay in touch, and we'll look forward to more such workshops, and good luck with everything. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, dear participants, for your patient hearing and for your great questions session. You have asked very good questions to ma'am. And now we don't have much time in our hand. We just have 1 hour left for our next paper presenter. That is Dr. Nabin Thakur. He is the Assistant Professor of Department of Education, ST.XAVIER'S College, which is Autonomous College in Kolkata, West Bengal, India. Prior to that, he has done MSc in Botany, then B.Ed, M.Ed, and PhD in Education on Biopsychology from NCERT, Bhubaneswar. He has done 21 international research publications, 31 national and international seminar publication, 25 national and international workshops, and also he is a member of reviewer and editor in 5 international journals with Scopus Index. So, Dr. Nabin Thakur, sir, please come forward. We are very thankful to have such resourceful person with us who has given his valuable time to us to share his speech, which will enrich us very well. So, Nabin Thakur, sir, please come. Over to you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Good evening to everyone. And initially, I would like to thank Professor Khaleda for her nice presentation in regard to the research and its related material. Thank you, ma'am. It's really an honor to me for becoming a part of the endeavor. And in this regard, I cordially extend my gratitude before the principal of SIDDHINATH MAHAVIDYALAYA and College of Education, along with organizer. In order to success this venture, I would also like to congratulate to the taskmaster.
The participants, you are requested to mute yourself. Again, when the question answer session will come, then you will unmute yourself. Now, please mute yourself.
Madam, am I
yes,
audible?
Sir, you can continue. Yes, you are audible. You can continue, sir.
As a taskmaster, I always used to congratulate to Dr. Samustri Madam and Dr. Siva Madam. And thank you very much for giving this platform to share my views in regard to the research. Somehow, is a very different way the people are going to present the different things in related to the research. In this regard, I also want to share some view regarding the research and research related concepts. Before starting about the research regarding the construction of social science and construction of paper, I just want to share some data or fact in regard to the journal publication or paper publication. So nowadays, these are the very important aspects for the publication of paper for the sake of academic purpose or for the sake of promotional purpose or for the sake of students and their career purpose. The people are very much eager to publish their paper in different journals. In that regard, it is very essential to identify where the people will publish their paper or where the researcher will publish their paper, where the research will see the validity of the paper. In that regard, it is very essential to identify the legibility and the validity of the research journal. In that regard, I want to share one research based on UGC. In 2018, there was a research based on Journal of UGC enlisted. So in that UGC enlisted journal, it has been completely revealed that nearly 88% of the UGC approved list of journals have been found to be a very low quality. And apart from that, this low quality was fully depends upon the core aspect of research paper, false information regarding the journal, fake address, insufficient detail of the journal, false information regarding ISN number. Based on different criteria, the research already revealed 88% enlisted journals are not good at all. So in that regard, again, UGC has taken a step to refresh the research paper, which one is good and which was not good at all for the purpose of publication. So finally, every time, almost depending on the nature of the society, the UGC always publishing the list of the journal. Right now, almost in social science, we have more than 24,000 research papers, along with scopus index. So my point is that based on that, where the people or where the researcher will publish their paper. So it is very essential to identify the authenticity of the paper. So based on that, it is very important how the researcher will develop their research paper, whether historical research paper or a survey related research paper or experimental research paper, whatever, what paper they will select based on that, something is very important to work on that. So regarding this, my title and my topic based on the research paper is construction of research paper in social science. Okay. Is my slide is visible to everyone? Hello?
Yes, sir. You're visible.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So now see, initially, whenever we will start to construct a research paper in the field of social science, many things we have to take into consideration. Now see, what the things we know whenever the researcher will, it is very essential to identify the 4 following things like title page, abstract, main body, and as well as reference. Now, thing is that the title page is a very, very important aspect for the researcher for the construction of paper. In that sake, what the things a researcher should take into consideration for the publication of the paper. Initially, there is a natural prejudice regarding the identification of the title. The people or researcher or based research always say the identification of the title is very, very important. If you finalize your title, then your 50% work is over. So identification and construction of title is not a simple matter. Sometimes the people used to take around 1 year, 2 years to fix their title. So construction of the title is not easy task. So being a researcher or being a supervisor or being a teacher, we must give some emphasis to the paper and its title, because title itself telling the whole scenario of the paper, like the movie. So whenever we will see any movie or cinema, we see the title, we heard the title. Based on the title, we can identify, yes, what kind of themes may be inserted in that film, in that movie. So in this regard, it's very important what will be the title, because the title always contains the total summarization of the idea. What idea I want to transfer, what idea I want to translate into the research. So basically, it is considered as a research based on summarization of the idea. The idea does not mean what I will get from the result that I will incorporate in my paper. That never comes. So finalization of the title is very important. See, in my slide, you can see one paper title like Influence of Parental Education on Academic Achievement of Students at Primary Level. Here you see what are the things. This title is just telling what the things can be there, what type of research may happen in this case. So this is the aspect of the construction of title. And whenever the people will construct or researcher will construct their title, it is very important what type of title they will establish. Sometimes the people also constructing their title by making the result. The conclusory part must not come into the title. You see the example of the second title, the study on negative impact on online teaching lying on adolescent learner. Here, the researcher is telling that there is a negative impact on online teaching. So as a researcher, without research, we cannot establish whether there is a negative impact or positive impact. So this type of title is not suitable at all. And in case of the reputed journal or database journal, this type of journal, they never accept this type of title. That's why most of the cases the paper become rejected. So now, next case we can see, whenever the researcher will publish or construct a title, the title should have some shortening. Keep it short. Too much lengthy title is not suitable, as well as too much short title also is not suitable. Sometimes if you prepare the title like like effect of politics in India, or South Indian politics. If I write the title like that, the title will not consider as a suitable title. Rather, it will be considered as an incomplete title. So title definitely will have important, but it will not be a longer title. So based on that, American Psychological Association, they have established in their 6th edition, they have said what will be the criteria of title, how many words we can put for the title, how many letters we can put our title, and how to display our title, how to write our title. Everything they have said in their 7th edition. They have also established many things in their 6th edition or 5th edition. But finally, they have also published 7th edition. In that edition, we can take some guidelines regarding the titles related material. So whenever the researcher will construct their title, they must know whether title is variable or not, because title itself contains the different type of variable, maybe independent variable, maybe dependent variable, or other variable. Basically, independent variable and dependent variable must be there in case of the title. So based on that, the researcher will identify, yes, what is to be done, what the researcher will do. So this will be the part of the researcher for the construction of title. So whenever the researcher will construct the title, not that, apart from this, another things also will they keep in their mind. So whenever the researcher will construct their title, they have to see the initial letter of the every word would have uppercase, later on with the lower case. And sometimes we are constructing our paper by making the title like uppercase. Every word become uppercase. So that never that things never say about the APA 7th edition. Even in 6th edition also, they have also guided what will be your paper style. Sometimes we're constructing our paper, but we tend to forget what will be our word. Sometimes we're writing non-specific opening word or some vague type of phrases or filler word with poor conjunction. So in that cases, we have to think what type of conjunction or what type of filler word or phrase will be suitable for the title. You see, here I have shown that report on, study of, result of, and experimental investigation of this type of things is not suitable at all for the construction of paper. So being a researcher, we have to think what type of phrase will be suitable for the construction of research. Unknowingly, sometimes we are writing all this phrase or conjunction in this regard. Sometimes researchers also frame their title by making hyphens, colon, abbreviation form, and as well as question mark. These are not acceptable at all, because APS 7th edition as well as normal research never suggests what this type of thing. But the question will rise. Sometimes we have seen the title is made up of by things where the researcher are using like interrogative symbol or sometimes abbreviation form. Yes, some cases it is acceptable, like in the research of philosophical research or economic related research. In that research, in some extent, we can use interrogative symbol along with abbreviation form. But if the abbreviation form researcher use, in that cases, that abbreviation should have some familiarity, like ICT, like diet, NCT, NCA. This type of term is very familiar for the researcher. So being a researcher, whenever I or others researcher will construct any paper if they will write effect of ICT on academic achievement of learner like this way, or principle of DUTT and their framework, or drawback of NCT, or effect of NCT for 2 years B.Ed. So this type of title will be acceptable because this abbreviation term is familiar for everyone. But if I write the title like I can show you some title here. I can show you. You see the title like now red one. The impact of activity-based adolescent education on attitude of secondary school students related to ARH. What does it mean? ARH means what? Because ARH, this term is not familiar at all. So in this regard, we must state what does it mean. So ARH means adolescent reproductive health. This term is not common at all. Initially, we have to write. So that will be our aspect for the construction of research in regard to the title. So this is very important. And apart from that, whenever the people or researcher will construct their title, the title style will be in the form of bold and center alignment, and it will be in top of the page. No italic or italic style will be used, and as well as no underline. You see, the first first title, there is an underline. This type of things is not acceptable. And ARH, about and another case, you see, the whole title is enclosed by some symbol. These also are not acceptable. So whenever the researcher will construct their paper, many things they must keep in their mind, so that immediately they will be able to construct their paper in a systematic way. Well, so now this is the aspect of the title. Whenever the researcher will construct their title, these things, if they will keep in their mind, then definitely the title will be suitable title, and based on that title, they will, or researcher will start their research. Because each and every word is very essential to identify, to work on that, so that the research will get proper sense. So now, whenever the researcher will construct their research in that time, as I told, the first thing, title is very essential, because title is itself considered as a main part of the research. If you finalize your title, your 50% work is over. Again, I'm repeating. So that sense we can say what importance we have for the construction of title. Then after construction of title, we will come to the part of the main body. So what will be the part of what things will come under main body? So main body is deals with some kinds of term like IMBRAD. Most of the country, they follow this type of structure for the construction of research paper. So IMBRAD means I stand for introduction, then M stands for method, result, as well as discussion. So that type of sequence, if the researcher follow, then definitely based on that, the paper will be the suitable paper. So what will come under the introduction is very, very important. So when the researcher will start to write the introduction, many things they will see. The introductory part itself is a kind of context of the paper, the context of the study, or what the background will be there in regard to the particular event. Based on that, introduction will be given. So introductory part will contain the explanation of the importance of the result, importance of the research, what plan we can carry out, that things also will comes under introduction. And basically, what will be the background? What will be the background? What will be the context of that type of work? That will come under in the part of the introduction. So within that introduction, we have to write rationality. That means why we are going to conduct this research. What is the importance of this research activity? What do we want to do? That will come under in this case. Later on, the hypothesis, and finally, in that part, we will construct different type of terminology, what I have used, or being a researcher, I have used in a title. So this will be the part of the introduction. So whenever we will come to research, hello, am I audible? Hello? Hello, madam, am I audible to everyone? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Thank you. Sometimes I become confused whether it is audible or not. Okay, thank you very much. Later on, we will come to the next things based after the introduction, that is review. This is also very crucial part for the researcher. So whenever the researcher will start to frame a reviewer, in that case, there will have some confusion. Even we have also some confusion what we will write. The review part is very important, like the other part, because the review will help you to guide how to conduct the research, what we have to do in our research. So in that regard, we have to identify whether my review will be based on objectivity or subjectivity. So we must not consider our review as a subjective, rather it will be considered as a objective. Sometimes we become biased. So we have to eliminate, we have to eradicate about the biasness. Maybe I have a paper, and next time I also want to publish a paper. But earlier I have published a paper, maybe that paper is not related to my present paper, but for the sake of my biasness, I will incorporate that research. So that is not acceptable. We have to find out what is my work, what type of review will be suitable for my work. And even if in a review, everything is not suitable for the research, what review I will select within that review, into that review, what will be the part or which things will be suitable for me, that only things we have to collect. So in that case, there should have some relevant review we have to collect, and as well as relevant things we will take into consideration for the framing of review. That's why, based on that, if you follow, then only we can justify the claim of the review. Sometimes, nowadays, this is the era of plagiarism. So to avoid the plagiarism essence, sometimes we follow some loopholes, we follow the back door to eradicate some plagiarism phenomena. In that case, in a plagiarism, there is option inverted comma. If you put, then that things will not come under your plagiarism. Sometimes the researcher use that type of phenomena to skip themselves from the plagiarism. That is not acceptable at all. So in that case, sometimes researchers use quotation. Too much quotation is not acceptable. Rather, valid and related to the research type of quotation will be more acceptable in case of the construction of research. And ultimately, finally, the researcher will definitely say the statement of the problem. Sometimes there is a confusion about the statement of problem or title. The statement of the problem is a kind of title, but it is considered as an extension title, where we can use inverted comma for the construction of statement of the title. in that title, we will address about the outline of the problem. We will address the gap of the knowledge. We will also address the reality of the problem as well as consequence of the problem that we want to deal in the sake of research. Comes under statement of the problem. So like this way, we will say what will be our review and how we can construct our review. Sometimes sometimes a researcher also can incorporate research related review related things now introduction. So that is also acceptable. So or sometimes they also create a separate review in regard to the construction of paper. That is also acceptable. But whatever the researcher will create, that should have some credibility. That should have some validity. So this will be the part of the review. Later on, we will come to the next things that is very important, that is objective. So now this is the era of the smart. So whenever we will frame any kinds of research, we have to be smart. So like that, if our objective is smart, then only our research paper will get smart aspect in regard to the research. So what will be the objective? What aspect we can consider for the construction objective? Objective is basically according to Bloom taxonomy, we can say we frame our objective based on general objective as well as specific objective. But being a researcher, we must construct specific objective rather general objective. You see, I have given two examples in regard to the general objective and specific objective. You see here, one example we can see to study the effect of poverty on education among selected cities in India. So this aspect is very challenging because within a short of duration, this type of objective will be difficult to fulfill. It will be difficult to finish. So that regard, it will be very, very essential for the purpose of a researcher, what type of objective will be suitable. So basically, objective always want specification. What objective I will frame, that will be measurable, that will be achievable within a short of duration, whether a researcher will able to achieve all these objective or not. And it is very essential whether our objective will be more pragmatic or not. So that's why realistic objective we have to frame. The construction objective also is a challenging matter for the researcher. Anything we cannot frame for the purpose of objective. So in that regard, smart objective is very important. And later on we can say, time is very important. Within a stipulated time, if we fail to finish our research, it will be valueless. Valueless in terms of affordability, in terms of monetary affair, in terms of work. In every cases, it will not work. So time is very important. What time will be suitable, within what duration we can finish our work, that will definitely come under this objective. So this will be the part of the objective. So after that, we will frame the another important things regarding this research paper or any kinds of research, that is hypothesis. Whenever the researcher will frame the hypothesis, there should have some connection with the objective. Sometimes we have seen the researcher are framing objective and there is no relation with the hypothesis. Objective is telling something else and a hypothesis is telling something else. So there should have proper relationship with the objective and hypothesis. What we want to know, that will come from the objective. And what will be my expectation about that objective, that will be my hypothesis. It is tentative solution, that will be the aspect of the hypothesis. If I frame one aspect, then will be considered a hypothesis. It will be more than one, then will be write a hypothesis. So whenever the researcher will frame hypothesis, they have to think what type of hypothesis will be suitable. Whether hypothesis will be testable, whether the researcher will able to test the hypothesis, If the hypothesis is not testable, then it will be not the valid hypothesis. And construction of a hypothesis also is a very, very the sensitive matter, because anything we cannot frame. What hypothesis I am framing, being a researcher, that foundation will be very clear. Basically, anything we cannot frame. For that, we have to connect with the hypothesis with a review. Review will say, based on a review, based on literature, we will frame what type of objective will be suitable for my research. Sometimes the question may arise, sir, if I don't get any review, yes, sometimes this happens. If I fail to get the review about my topic, then definitely in that regard, some others related work, but the things will be almost same. That type of things we can take into consideration. Hello, if you presenting in my slide, please don't do that. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for the other viewer. So now, in this aspect, it is very important. So now, what will be the hypothesis? Maybe hypothesis will frame in the form of directional hypothesis, maybe non-directional hypothesis, maybe the null hypothesis, maybe declarative hypothesis. What hypothesis will be suitable based on a review? That things we have to take into consideration. Here you see, I have framed two hypotheses based on a directional hypothesis and non-directional. So if you thoroughly study about the hypothesis, then definitely you will come to know what type of hypothesis will be suitable for the researcher. Because being a researcher, it is very important to construct a hypothesis. What type of hypothesis will be suitable, will be valid for your research. So that is very important. Whether I will frame the hypothesis based on a null hypothesis. If I framing the null hypothesis in that regard, so why I am framing the null hypothesis? For that regard, what will be my foundation? What will be my justification? For what basis I have framed the hypothesis? Hypothesis maybe maybe sometimes we can frame in the form of question. So basically, these things always a researcher must understand. So this is another aspect of this. Already I have discussed about the different type of classification of the hypothesis. That things we can also take into consideration for the purpose or the demand of the research. So later on in the IMRA, this is the form as methodology. The methodology is another part which deals with a different type of things. Things in terms of population, sampling, methodology, tools and technique, and as well as what type of limitation will be for my research. Now, being a researcher, it is very important what type of population will be suitable, where we can conduct my research, what will be my study population, what will be my target population. That is very important. If I fail to identify the population where my research will be suitable, which area I can conduct my research, if I fail to identify, we will not be able to conduct our research. So identification of population is a matter of the thing. So based on that, if I fix my population, whether what will be my target population or study population, based on that we can frame our sampling. So here also does matter what type of sampling I'll be selecting. If I'm conducting qualitative research, my sampling will be different. If I'm conducting about the qualitative research, this is something different. But if I'm conducting quantitative research, then my sampling aspect will be different. So what type of sampling or what type of sample we will select, that will depend upon your research, and that will depend upon your title and objectivity. That means to test your hypothesis, what type of sample will be suitable, that you have to consider. If I am conducting qualitative research, my sampling frame will be different. Maybe non-probable sampling. In that non-probable sampling, we can conduct judgmental or quota or purposive or convenient or sometimes incidental, maybe snowball, what type of sampling will be suitable for my research in case of the qualitative aspect, that we have to think. And sometimes we can also conduct quantitative research. In quantitative research, what type of sampling will be suitable? What type of sampling will be acceptable for my research, that we have to think. In that regard, probable sampling will be the matter. Probable sampling we can select. In that probable sampling, what type of sampling or classification of sampling we have to identify? Maybe random sampling or stratified random sampling or systematic sampling or cluster sampling or Monte Carlo sampling. What type of sampling will be acceptable or will be suitable or will be comfortable for the purpose of my research? That is very important. So in this regard, sampling creates some basic aspects, because if I fail to construct my sample or sample size, whether randomization or non-randomization, so based on that we can construct our research outline, our research structure, our research periphery. So now next we come to the part of the methodology. The methodology means what type of methodology will be, as a researcher, will be using. Maybe philosophical research we are doing, maybe we are doing historical research, maybe survey, maybe experimental. So in that regard, what type of methodology I'll be using? Suppose I'm doing qualitative research, but if I make methodology experimental, then it will not be suitable. So being a researcher, you have to identify what type of sampling, what type of hypothesis I have framed. Based on that, what type of methodology I have to select. Everything, every aspect is related to each other. There is a connectionism from each and every part of the research. So one component is connected with the other component. So if any disturbed we will have in any component, your research will not go on in a smooth way. So this will be the part of the methodology. So after methodology, we will think about what type of tool or what type of instrument I will use to collect data. So this is also a matter of fact for our research. The tools, whenever we will select, we will see according to the need of the research, according to the demand of my topic, as a researcher, I will select what type of tools will be suitable, what type of tools will be acceptable. In that regard, that we have to take into consideration. So maybe we can use the tools like inquiry form. So within inquiry form, what type of form will be suitable for my research? That also comes under this aspect. Maybe questionnaire, either in the form of open or close, maybe schedule, maybe checklist, maybe rating scale. What type of things or what type of question, inquiry form will be acceptable? That definitely comes under this aspect. So after that, we will also see whether my research will support observation schedule, whether my research will be suitable for the conducting the interview or test. What type of tools will be suitable? What type of tool I can use to testify my hypothesis that a researcher must understand properly. If the researcher will identify the proper aspect of that, then definitely their research will have some essence. Later on, after construction of this tool, we have to test, we have to calculate. For the calculation, it is very essential what type of technique we'll be using. We'll be using means what type of statistics. This is very, very, very important. But most of the cases with the researcher we have some scare, we have some dilemma. What type of techniques I'll be using? Maybe mean, maybe mode, maybe a median, maybe t-test, f-test. we don't know what type of test will be suitable. So that is very important. Being a researcher, you have to identify for that research, for that tool, which type of statistics will be suitable. I'm doing this research, so whether in this aspect, F test will be suitable, or a T test will be suitable, or simple standard deviation will be suitable. What type of things will be acceptable? What type of will be fitted for my research? That is will create the essence. That will create the demand of your research. So, in terms of holistic approach about the research, this holistic approach, if we follow, then definitely we will construct very good calculation in regard to the methodology of our research. So now the final part of this methodology is delimitation. The delimitation is based on the limitation of my research. Sometimes due to the sort of duration, sort of money, or sort of financial affair, sort of some time, or we squeeze our research. We basically limit our research. So that things we have to incorporate in this regard. So why I am delimiting about my research? What was the aspect, for what choice I have selected? What things I have not selected in that case? Everything we can explain in the platform of delimitation. So that is better. So later on, we can move into the another part of this research, that is research. So after construction of tools and techniques, finally we will calculate, and after calculation we will frame what will be my result. The result means simple calculation of the whole fact, and based on that it will be considered as a fact finding. What fact I have found out. Result does not consider explanation of the research. Definitely we will have a scope where we will explain. Result does not demand the comment and complement of my finding. Why I have got this result, why I have not got this result. Definitely we will have a space to discuss about all these. So in case of that result, we will simply write the finding, that is fact finding of the work of the research, as well as table. If I frame my data in the tabulated form, in a table form, that things we will write. And whenever we will write the title of the table, that will come up. That means caption will be above the table, and if we use figure, then definitely caption will be the below of that figure, according to the APA 7th edition. And sometimes it is very interestingly, I can share, within the part of this result, many cases the researchers are using analysis and interpretation. So analysis and interpretation also may be considered as a part of this result. It depends on the researcher. Sometimes they can use in a separately within a research, or the researcher can you can collaborate this analysis and interpretation within the part of the result, and sometimes they can separate as a analysis interpretation as a separate chapter or separate part. So now the thing is that what will come under the analysis? As I told you, in a case of the result, only the finding will come out, and calculation total output of the calculation that will come from the result. And whenever we will write a analysis or interpretation, that will create the cream of the research, because based on analysis and interpretation we will come to know what I have done and what the researcher established in his research or in her research. That's why The researcher always used to say analysis is the cream of this research. So whenever the researcher will frame any kinds of things, we have to take into consideration what type of things we will incorporate. Because in case of the analysis, the researcher will explain about the table, what the table we have incorporated in the result. That things we will explain. And the personal experiences we can also share during the collection of data. So that is very important. That's why, in case of the research, the last letter of the research is H stand for honesty. Because if you are honest, if you go to collect your data, and if you collect by your own self, then only your analysis and interpretation will get proper validity. Sometimes we are cheating ourselves for the conducting of the research. So that's why H stands for honesty. Be honest about the research. Then only your analysis and interpretation will get proper, validity. You will identify. You can say. You can state any kinds of comment and compliment regarding your research. So we can learn what the things we have learned from the during the data collection. That things we can incorporate in a periphery of analysis and interpretation. So that experiences, if you share, if you write, then it will be very helpful for the sake of the analysis and interpretation. Sometimes we are mixing up what we will write in analysis and what we write in interpretation. Analysis means we're analyzing, and interpretation what we are expecting and what we have received. What I expect this one thing, but I got that one thing. So why I have got that one thing, that will come under interpretation. So in that regard, many consequences will come. So if you collect your data by your own way, then only you can recapitulate what things happen, what consequences happen in that regard. Based on that, we can easily incorporate in the field of analysis and interpretation. And finally, we'll move into the part of the discussion. That is also very important part for the researcher. And this is the part where I can contribute my feeling. Whole research I can summarize in a main way. That means finding I can write, and as well as different type of comparative aspect we can write with reference. So now earlier we have used review for the purpose of literature, and here in the frame of discussion we can also use some valid information to support my research. I have got this type of finding, and that result also shows this type of finding. So in that discussion we can also code the comparative study about my research, as well as some contrasting character that I have received from my research. That also I can write by the help of the review. So review also create a factor for the discussion, and discussion will create what you have thought, what you wanted to incorporate in your research. And ultimately in this section we can also incorporate the recommendation for the further research. So these things will come under the discussion. So this is the IMRAD part. And finally, in this way, we can sum up our research. But in case of the research, these things also does matter, like reference. What will be my reference? What will be my bibliography? There is a confusion about the references and bibliography. What things we will write? Whether I will be writing the bibliography or reference, which one will be suitable? So whenever the researcher will only refer specific reference related any content, that will come under reference. But whenever the researcher will follow like newspaper, book, journal, monograph, encyclopedia, any kinds of statements of seminar or any webinar, in a written document, when they will cite in their research, definitely they will follow the bibliography. But there is some confusion because APA is telling to use a reference, but others in our world there is a 3 or 4 style they used to follow, like American Psychological Association, then one of the things like Modern Language Association, then Chicago Manual style. They also used to say, yeah, instead of reference, we can write bibliography. So that is the matter for that. So what type of paper we will publish and where we will publish, they will also guide you whether you will be writing the bibliography or is reference. That things they will write, and how we will write, what will be the style, what type of consequency or what type of frame will be there in that regard. That they will guide, and this time schedule also very important. And nowadays, the research article or different reputed journals, Scopus Index journal, or any kinds of whether database journal, they also want a highlight. The highlight means is a kind of abstract, but it is not abstract. There is some confusion. This is not abstract, but specifically they want what you have done. So that highlight, they simply ask for within a 40, 50 words or 30 words. They ask. Finally, we will frame the abstract. Now, interesting thing is there, at the end of the research, we will frame abstract, but the abstract gets chance at the beginning of the research. So this is the cream of this, research. So at the end of the research, after completion of our research, we frame our abstract, but abstract always keep their place in a initial part of the research. This is the way where we can construct our research based on a different paper or different article. And thank you for listening me.
Hello.
Yes, madam.
Yes, you have completed your session, sir?
Yes.
Okay, now it is open for question answer. So I can see already there are some questions in the chat box. May I read these questions? Just wait.
Shamasri.
Yes.
Just a moment. We told that we will take some questions from YouTube also. So can I tell that?
Okay, you first tell.
Okay, so sir, good evening, Navin sir. Raju Naru, he has asked a question that's from the YouTube live link. He has first congratulated you for your very nice presentation, but he has a question. He asked, please explain, what does background indicate?
Yeah, background depends upon your title. Suppose I can tell you what type of subject or what type of theme you are choosing for your research. Based on that, you have to write some things about your that research. Suppose I can take the example like if your topic is like effect of activity-based adolescence education on behavior related to adolescent reproductive health. So if your title is like that, so you see what are the key points I can read over here. The effect of activity-based. So activity-based means what? What activity-based, and as well as what adolescence education is telling. What is the scenario? What is the past scenario? What is the present status of that scenario regarding the adolescence, and as well as adolescent reproductive health? Everything we can take into consideration for the purpose of the background. So if researcher want to write background in the frame of introduction, so this type of things they can write. Yes, madam. Thank you. Hello.
Any other question, Prathita ma'am?
Yes. And Mallika Dash has asked, hypothesis, is it essential for research?
Sorry, can you repeat?
Hypothesis, is it essential for research? Mallika Das has asked.
So, yeah, the hypothesis is important for the research because there are different hypotheses. Hypothesis is a kind of spotlight of this. So hypothesis you will frame in the form of direct, indirect, null, or sometimes, research question also is a kind of hypothesis. Rather, we can say it is a research question. So why? What do you want to? So, we have some target. What target I will achieve? That will come under objective. And whenever we will construct any kinds of query, whether I will be achieving that result or not, that will come under hypothesis. So hypothesis, if we write, then it will be suitable. Maybe it will come under the frame of question form. Sometimes in philosophical research, or sometimes ethnographic research. Sometimes in case of the different type of qualitative research, we always used to frame research question. The research question itself is a kind of hypothesis. So if you frame, then we will get the proper torchlight of our research.
Shyamastri, you can continue with this. I am done. You can continue with the Zoom question.
Okay. Sir, almost same question is asked by Ria Banerjee. Are research questions mandatory for constructing a research paper?
Yes, a research question or a hypothesis, it will help to complete your research. So that's why our many kinds of paper is not accepting by the database journal, because most of the cases database journal, they always instruct to follow the total frame of the research. I want to know, and whether what things will be in my research. If I frame through the help of a research question, then only the proper impact of that research will be fulfilled. So this is my view according to the API and others, aspects of the research. So it is better to frame a research question or to frame a hypothesis.
Okay. Next question is from Paritosh Kumar Paul. Any quote on research paper can be measured by plagiarism?
Sorry. Can you
any quote, any quotation, any quote on research paper can be measured by plagiarism?
Yes,
plagiarism.
Okay,
any quotation on research paper.
Quotation means if you make by using the inverted comma, because in case of the plagiarism, there are different type of plagiarism. They are like government is supplying us like Urkund, but sometimes different type of reputed organization like IIT, like others college, like our college, we are also using I authenticate, turn it on. This type of things we are using. So in that aspect, they are asking some question or some option. Based on that, they ask, if you click on a quotation, then it will not come under the part of the plagiarism. So for the sake of many researchers, to keep safe from the use of a plagiarism phenomena, they are writing by using inverted comma, so that the plagiarism cannot be checked by this way. So being a researcher, that type of cheating is not suitable. That's why I told in my presentation, too much quotation is not suitable. But if the quotation is valid about the particular background, particular aspect of the research, then that type of things we can incorporate. But too much use of quotation is not suitable at all.
Yes, thank you. Chiranjit Setua has asked, what is the difference between limitation and delimitation?
Okay, limitation and delimitation, this is not the different word. Sometimes for the sake of it is a kind of analogy term. Limitation you can write, or sometimes for the purpose of research we are writing delimitation. Both are same. So there is a very overlapping concept, and we can say sometimes the overlapping synonyms. We can consideration. Yes.
Okay, next, Ria again asked, are the research questions for qualitative and quantitative research paper same?
Sorry.
Research questions for qualitative and quantitative paper same?
It means, you see, sometimes in our introductory part, we can also write a research question. And sometimes in a different way, we can also write a research question. So where we are putting our research question, that does matter. Because in case of the, quantitative research, we also put the research question in the part of the introductory part. And sometimes in case of the qualitative research, sorry.
Hello,
in case of the qualitative, yes.
Hello, nice presentation, Nobin. I am Samsunto speaking.
Oh, sir, please.
I say something regarding the limitation and delimitation. Okay?
Yes, sir, please. Please.
Sure.
Suppose a person run 10 kilometers per hour. Okay? But he delimit 5 kilometers per hour. But if he run 100 kilometers per hour, it is a limitation. It is limitation for the students. He runs 10 kilometers per hour, but try to run 100 kilometers like a Rajdhani Express, it is the limitation for the students. But he runs 20 kilometers per hour, but he delimits 10 kilometers per hour, it is the delimitations. Okay? So there is the limitations and delimitations. Rajdhani Express, the speed of the Rajdhani Express is 130 kilometers per hour. Okay? It has limit. But when Rajdhani Express passes 100 kilometers, it is the delimitations. But if you try to run Rajdhani Express in 200 kilometers, it is the limitation for the Rajdhani Express. It cannot run 200 kilometers per hour. It is the limitation of the Rajdhani Express. But he runs 130 kilometers per hour, but you limit 100 kilometers per hour, then it is a delimitations. Okay, this is the difference between the limitation and delimitations. Okay, thank you, Domin. Okay, nice presentation. Carry on. Okay.
Thank you, sir, for explanation.
Your view, sir. Thank you very much.
There are some repeat questions I've already asked yesterday, so I am not repeating those. You can watch the YouTube yesterday. Next question, Subhash Chandra has asked, can we adapt purposive sampling technique in descriptive research? Can we adapt purposive sampling technique in descriptive research?
Yeah, it is a part of the sampling aspect. If you thoroughly study about the sampling aspects, and we can say, because purposive sampling also is a kind of non-probable sampling. So what type of research you are conducting based on your population or based on your objectivity, you have to decide. So what type of sampling will be suitable? So without knowing the title, it is very difficult to comprehend what type of sampling will be suitable for you, right? So Adam, just want to request to you. So as this is the platform of workshop. So if you collect some three titles in regard to the philosophical research and experimental research or descriptive research from the participant, then definitely in some extent we will fulfill our goal in this regard.
We cannot take much more question because already it's 6:08. So I have to sum up now. You can ask question to sir in his private email ID. He will be able to answer your queries. Sure. So thank you, Nabin Thakur sir, for your nice deliberation and for nice clearance of doubts of the questions presented by the participants. You have delivered in a very lucid language, and the abbreviations were really very effective to keep in mind. It was a brush up for memory. It is very wonderful that they can easily memorize those abbreviation and can utilize or apply in his research area, and they have cleared some more doubts also. So constructing a research paper is very much valuable deliberation from your part. So thank you very much, sir. There are some of the participants from MAD batch, KOLKATA College of Education. They were very much affected, beneficial from your lecture. They have personally messaged me. That's why I am sharing. And the students, those who have passed alumni from SIDDHINATH Mahavidyalaya, some of them are studying in Jadavpur University and Vishwabharati University. They are master degree. They are pursuing their master degree. They are also very much beneficial from your lecture. They have also personally WhatsApp me. That's why I am taking their names. So thank you, sir, for your nice deliberation. Sir, anyway, are you?
Thank you very much, madam.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for your you have spent your valuable time with us. So thank you very much. Today I am going to close our session now. Before closing, I'm very much thankful to Dr. Pratita Bishar for all along your her support. I'm thankful to Dr. Kumar Ghosh, our principal madam, SIDDHINATH Mahavidyalaya, for organizing such a nice workshop. And I'm thankful to Mr. Shubhodip Mojumdar, Joint Convener, Pailan College of Education, organizing coordinator, Mrs. Sumita Chaudhuri, for her support, joint coordinator, Dr. Kunal Sardar, for his support, and obviously last but not the least, all the participants from all over India and also from abroad. They are also watching in YouTube link also, and we are overwhelmed by their response that many of them could not enter Zoom because there is limitations of 100, and most of them are watching in YouTube live. We are really thankful to all the participants for your patience hearing, and all the credits goes to the resource persons only, because of their lecture, because of their nice deliberation, all the participants are attracted to your lecture only. And it's not no credit from our part. So
Being a taskmaster, I always congratulate. It is very difficult to assemble all kinds of teachers. So being as a taskmaster, I always salute this type of person. But without your support, it is not possible. I hope that's why I really congratulate for your successful program.
Thank you so much, sir. And for some notification for the participants, tomorrow you will be present at 4 to 6, tomorrow's presentation. And no other than me and Pratita Vishesh madam, tomorrow we are the speaker only. So I don't know how can we satisfy you, the participants. So please bear with us. And no feedback link will be given for day to day, and the feedback link will be given at the last. So thank you. Now I am closing this session. Thank you.